Hello everyone and welcome to this IFST workshop, which is entitled Bringing Agility to Sensory and Consumer Science, and it's organised jointly by IFST's Sensory Science and Food Innovation Special Interest Groups. My name is Stephanie Mitchell and I'm the chair of the IFST's Sensory Science Special Interest Group. The Sensory Science Group was set up over 20 years ago now to provide its members with opportunities to engage and share knowledge with fellow members. The group provides a wide range of activities, including an annual conference, discussion workshops, accreditation and examination of sensory training, review and promotion of ethical and professional standards. We also have an active student forum and a register of professional sensory scientists. The Food Innovation Group provides members interested in innovative food design and development from concept through to final product with an opportunity to engage and share knowledge with others. Its purpose is to promote and inspire excellence in food product and packaging innovation. It has a broad scope covering all areas relating to raw materials, culinary aspects, design thinking, intellectual property, as well as insights and trends. It also considers topics such as commerciality, product process development and new product launches, as well as managing critical paths and contributing to relevant publications. So moving on to today. Most people would agree that 2020 forced them to rethink ways of working and embrace alternative solutions. Today's webinar will explore how sensory and consumer research has been successfully adapted to deliver sharper insights in a faster, more agile, smarter way. This interactive workshop will be led by innovative researchers from agencies and manufacturing, but we want to hear from you too. Please be ready to share your opinions, insights and experiences so that together we can learn how to improve our science and make it more relevant in today's world. We have 4 presenters today: Sarah Bilson, a sensory scientist working at Mars; Steve Timms, Commercial Development Manager at Brenntag Food and Nutrition; Tracy Sanderson, Managing Director at Sensory Dimensions; and Ollie Thompson, Director at Tang Tiger. After this introduction, there will be a presentation from each of the 4 speakers. Then everyone will be split into breakout sessions for a 20-minute discussion. We will then reconvene as a group for a final discussion and summary. In terms of online etiquette, during the session today, please keep your microphone muted when not speaking. Feel free to ask questions throughout the session using the chat function, which should be at the bottom of your screen. This can also be used in the case of any technical difficulties. So with that, I will hand over to our first speaker, Tracy.
Thank you, Stephanie. So, hi everybody, and thank you for attending the webinar today. As Steph said, I'm Tracy Sanderson and I'm representing Sensory Dimensions. Hopefully I know a lot of you, but for those of you who aren't familiar with us, Sensory Dimensions is a sensory and consumer research consultancy business, and we work with our clients to support them to design, develop and maintain successful products and packaging. And we work across a range of sectors: food, beverage, pet, home, personal care, cosmetics and healthcare. And really I include this next slide just to illustrate that whilst our client base and also all of your companies, across all of those, there are many, many differences. Some companies are obviously global, some are more focused on one market, some have very wide product portfolios, and others have more specific portfolios. Some are retail and others are manufacturers. And all of these factors will influence product development research strategies and ensure that they have different interpretations of Agile. So what is Agile and what can Agile mean? So some things that are associated with Agile are on this slide. I think there's a common misconception that speed is Agile. And of course, to some extent, Agile research is associated with speed, but fast is not necessarily Agile. Fast research is just fast research. Flexible is almost certainly associated with Agile. Agile research is iterative. It's based on the ingoing premise that you are willing to change the next step, what you do, depending on the outcome of the current one. And this requires some degree of creative thinking. In other words, Agile means testing and learning. In practice for us, this has meant presenting samples for quantitative testing or to a smaller group in a qualitative product lab investigation, and then our clients using the outcomes to go away and reformulate their products, and then represent those samples back to the original group for more feedback. Certainly for foods, this process cannot always be fast. There might need to be pilot plants booked, for example, or you may need your product to undergo some sort of post-processing aging, for example, of fats or flavors. So whilst, of course, you can test unfinished prototypes in this way, it is important that throughout your research process, all samples are equally unfinished, or you may end up with choices and decisions based on quality rather than the variables that you're actually interested in. Agile must mean robust. The data has to be robust, and the principles of sound experimental design, using the right people and enough of them, remain. And all of these features are inherent in our approach, not only at Sensory Dimensions, but in that of all of our agency colleagues, partners, and competitors. Really, overall, Agile means collaborative, and it relies strongly on agency-client relationships and on trust. Key to rapid consumer research is easy access to consumers. At SD, we have a very large consumer community, and this is centric to our 2 sites in Reading and Nottingham, but also stretches nationwide. And actually, it's been this established community of consumers that has allowed us to continue to work easily and seamlessly as we moved in and out of lockdown situations last year. Our community allows us to access people quickly and recruit for central location tests, home use tests, and qualitative research very promptly, within a couple of days if required. But probably more importantly, the community allows us to build sub-communities, and these can be live either for short periods of time or for very long periods where maybe several different products can be tested. So for example, a typical study would be one that we did recently on savoury biscuits, where 4 flavours were tested amongst 4 different groups of consumers. And the findings from the first round fed into product reformulation. And 3 weeks later, as soon as the products were ready, the groups were reconvened to assess these reformulated products. We found that about 80% of the original cohort tends to be available when you need them for the next stage. And actually, one of the biggest challenges is just organising people and organising diaries to get everybody together again. Agile research is also enhanced by adding on extras. And so typically these might be one-to-one depth interviews or mini focus groups of 3 to 4 people that are added on to a more quantitative study. And these, of course, now can be done face-to-face, which is a very nice situation to be in. But during lockdown, relied, like we do now, on Teams and Zoom. As add-on sessions, these are often quite short, 20 minutes probably maximum, but they do allow you to probe much more deeply into the themes of the quantitative test or sometimes to explore a different area altogether. So, for example, you might like to look at pack designs and value impression after a concept-led product test. And similarly, you might use sensory panels to add on to consumer research to probe attributes or issues. Finally, Agile challenges us to find new ways to embrace reporting beyond PowerPoint. So, for example, we've started to use video a lot more to really capture the way consumers are responding to products. And these are really powerful for communicating success or otherwise to our clients, and probably more importantly for our clients to communicate within their own businesses. However you do the reporting, for Agile, quick feedback and top lines are essential, and iterative reporting works the best. So for Qual, this usually means immediate debriefing after sessions that involves the moderator and the client so that they can align on key impressions and themes. And then these results can feed into the design of subsequent sessions, but it also moves the final conclusions and decisions about next steps to the business along so much faster. And interactive debriefs are essential to Agile approaches. So in summary, at Century Dimensions, Agile definitely means iterative, with next steps changing depending on outcomes. We can deliver this using qualitative, quantitative, sensory research, and a combination of all of those things. And that is really helped by rapid access to consumers, which can allow for the creation of communities. But overall success is definitely dependent on client collaboration, sharing, and mutual trust. Thank you for listening, and I'm now going to hand over to Ollie Thompson of Tang Tiger, who's going to give us his views of Agile through a specifically qualitative lens.
Thank you, Tracy. It's a very, very interesting chat, and it dovetails very nicely with what I'm going to be discussing on my presentation as well. So let me just get that up on screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. So there we go. Right, so just to introduce myself a little, so my name is Ollie Thompson, and I'm the director of a qual consultancy called Tang Tiger. We specialize in FMCG, food and drinks innovation, helping people understand sensory links between things like consumer behaviors, product sensory needs, and occasionality. And so that's what we do. And what we're going to be doing today is talking to you a bit about how we've been working in more agile ways in response to the pandemic specifically. So let's get cracking on that. So the theme of what we're going to be talking about here is summed up in this slide. So adapting to COVID taught us to work smarter. So 2 points here really. So one, to integrate research within consumer lives, because obviously everyone's been stuck at home for the last year and a half. And also how to better utilize technology. Now, just to preface this before we move further, it's worth just going back to a point that Tracy made around how we define agility as well. So for us at Tang Tiger, agility over the last year has very much been about how we can quickly adapt in terms of our approach to research, and in terms of how we can synthesize and analyze better with online research methods and remote research methods. So that's going to be the gist of what we're going to be looking at today, and exploring how those aspects of agility dovetail with qualitative research. So let's take a step back a bit then, just to recap on what the story was. So obviously in spring 2020, and I think this goes for a lot of the research industry as well as consumer research, there's an abrupt halt to a lot of our projects. So March 2020, lots of things came to a grinding halt. a good 6 months while people were trying to figure out how we were going to reapproach research with everyone being stuck at home, because obviously face-to-face research became unfeasible. So how are we going to progress with our clients' briefs? How could we run sensory product research in consumers' homes in a way that was both detailed and engaging? So all of this came together and left us with a couple of questions. Now, what's quite interesting is when you speak to clients about using online methods, the assumption is often that it will be quicker, it'll be cheaper, it'll be simpler. But actually, the reverse is often true. Actually, using online methods, particularly with sensory qualitative research, it can become a more complex and involved process. And there are several reasons for that. There's several challenges that we're facing. So firstly, around logistics. So how do consumers physically try the products? You know, how do we get the products out to people's homes? How do we package the products? How do we ensure that the products are stored correctly so that they're all tasting the same thing in the same way? That leads us on to protocol as well. So how do we ensure that the consumers trying the products taste it in the same way, that they try the same right product at the right time, and we have comparable data. Then we also have an issue around capture as well. So one of the great things with face-to-face workshops is that by its very nature, it's very dynamic. You can be agile because you're in the moment. You can swap in and out different products. You can adapt the questioning as you see the story unfold, as you're asking consumers to interact with products. So when they've got the product sent home, it's actually inherently a little bit less flexible. So how do you capture the detail that you would have otherwise got through face-to-face methods? And finally, how do we ensure that these consumer remote methods are engaging? So obviously, when we run creative face-to-face workshops, one of the key things as a qualitative researcher is to make sure that they're fun and engaging. So how does that translate across to online methods? So all of this made us reevaluate how we approach online, because I mean traditionally online's been used very much more as a supportive tool. So it would often bookend the main face-to-face research. So you might have a pre-task online or a post-task online, but this time we actually need to use that online method and home use test as the primary method of data collection. So how can we adapt that home use test to give us the same sort of outputs that we would have otherwise had using face-to-face methodologies? And so the first thing that we realized as we started to adapt our methods was that actually we could include elements that we would use in offline to create a more engaging experience for consumers. So what we did here was to create a combined approach. So yes, they are online practices. So using things like communities, whiteboards, using like mobile videos, polls, collages, but also combining that with things offline as well. So getting consumers to do things with their hands, interact with real stimulus of products. It could be sorting tasks, give them games and activities to do to make that a more engaging experience for them, because what that does is makes the research environment more tangible. So you see that the levels of engagement are increased. And so how we did that was to send out activity packs alongside our online research. So some of that would have those physical tasks that they'd have to interact with, so products, stimulus, activities, things for them to physically engage with in a tangible way. And just to shed some light here on the sorts of tools that we would typically use when we're running online research. So on the one hand, we've got tools that are specifically designed for consumer research. So we've got things like Web Creator Suite, great for online boards. Visions Live have a really lovely mobile interface for capturing ethnography or ethnographic style studies, capturing video, capturing multimedia. And they've also got live focus group capabilities there with whiteboards, and then together another online communities platform. Then on the right hand side, we also used some different consumer channels as well, so things which people are using on the day-to-day in lockdown as well, so using things like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WhatsApp as well, just to make it a more relatable, easy to use method of capturing data. Now, one of the other things that we had to address was how to get better detail from online as well. And our approach to that really was to think of things through different lenses. So how do we capture individual response? How do we capture product response? How do we capture group discussion and ideation? And the answer to that really is, again, using a sort of multi-method approach. And that covers three areas. So firstly, multi-platform engagement. So using tools which consumers have at home, using a variety of different channels to capture that information. So using desktop computers, laptops, mobiles, tablets, and using the tool which best suits the task as well. So whether it's a discussion or whether it's capturing something in their consumption moment, you might want to use, say, mobile. So using the right tool for the right job, essentially. Then we've got a multi-phase approach as well. So thinking about how consumers are interacting with the product or the activity, and creating different stages to that as well. So some things are live and interactive. So you might run like a live taste session in a focus group, online focus group style. But also we might want some individual response as well. So perhaps looking at behaviors, creating video logs or YouTube style reviews on a product, getting them to shopping tasks. All of that combines into a sort of more multi-phase approach. And finally, making the most of those different channels and platforms as well. So we've got a bunch of different methods of data collection, which mean that we have different outputs as well. So similarly to as Tracy was mentioning there, it means that we can have some more engaging outputs for clients. So using things like videos, using online as an easy tool to collate visual stimulus, so photos from consumers' homes or consumption occasions, and using additional things like scoring and polling, which obviously you can add in quite easily to those online channels as well. So looking at our projects through those multiple lenses, using those multiple angles, actually delivered some really great results. We had a lot of content. It's very rich and immersive, and easily gave us as much detail as we'd expect from our face-to-face projects. However, what we found was actually this created a new challenge in itself, that because we got so many different angles of approach with this new sort of COVID approach to research, how do you analyze so much information? How do you go about doing it in an efficient way, in a time efficient way? So again, we need to think about how we can act in an agile way when we've adapted to these more online and remote research methods. And the answer to that is centering more towards automation. So, and these tools, I should say, all of these things have been around before COVID as well. But what we found is that COVID's really forced us out as a necessity to reevaluate what tools are out there, what they can do, and how they can help us manage the content that you produce in online research in a more efficient way. And so just to give you some examples of the sorts of tools that are available out there at the moment and are actually super useful as well. We've got some different tools there on the bottom right. So Perfect Recall, and Otter. They're really useful transcription tools for things like Zoom. So for example, you could put this Zoom call through their tools, and as it's recording, it will create a live transcript. So that's useful, obviously, with video editing. When you've got hours of video footage, you can scroll through quickly, find the clips you want, edit down your content very fast. It also means that you can create subtitles very quickly for your video outputs as well. Other ways that we're using automation for getting through that data more quickly is using some of the tools which are available on these platforms as well. So research platforms often come with a lot of automated tools, but typically these are being a little underutilized. But actually, now that we're generating so much more content, they're a lot more useful. So using things like the Wordle functions, thematic analysis tools that they have, or even things like tagging and highlighting tools, just to sort of analyze as you go, just to make it really quick and easy, just to snap back through and see what the themes are when you get to the analysis stage. So I guess all of that, so the experience of the pandemic so far has really encouraged us as qualitative researchers to reevaluate how we engage with online, how we engage with remote methods, and actually it's made us work in agile ways in some different aspects. So the agility to work to adapt more quickly to changing environments, the agility to work with online data in a more efficient way, and essentially what it's taught us is to work smarter, but not necessarily faster. And so that's it from me. So I will now pass you on to our next speaker, I think is Steve. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Ollie. So hello, everybody. I'm Steve Timms from Brenntag Food and Nutrition UK and Ireland. For those of you who aren't perhaps aware of Brenntag, Brenntag is one of the world's largest distributors for ingredients and chemicals used throughout food and beverage sectors. In my role, I head up a small team that is responsible every day for searching for new opportunities for specialist ingredients and progressing those development projects. And of course, progressing those development projects requires assessment of products. And if we can go to the next slide, please, Robin. When COVID arrived, we met with some really serious challenges. Obviously, it was not possible to meet in person. That prevented us from having the opportunity to sit with customers, to actually take their first-hand evaluation of our products. And also group assessments were not permitted. So we weren't able to arrange those great sessions where we get a number of people in a room and take a number of soundings on the product and its appearance, its texture, its aroma, its functionality. That was all not possible as well. So what we encountered was a real challenge where our new product development pipeline was stalled. It really did come to a very sharp halt, as I guess it did for many of you. And even though some approvals were partially signed off, they were not fully signed off, and therefore the whole process was delayed. So how did we go about addressing this? Robin, if you could go to the next slide, please. We took a step back and actually thought, what does this new world look like? We have a number of our customers who are now consigned to working at home, where they previously enjoyed an office environment or a laboratory environment. And so we started to think about some of the challenges of trying to reach them, in their home environment, in their new working environment. And we felt one of the obvious ways of reaching them was obviously to deliver them something. But straight away, we thought there are many ways to deliver. And we eventually settled on a conclusion that was developed around having a slimline box that was actually the right dimensions to fit through a standard front door UK letterbox. And thereby we felt we could use Royal Mail to deliver, which meant that these parcels could be delivered any time throughout the day. It meant that the recipient did not have to run downstairs to the front door, try and collect a parcel from a courier before they disappeared away. These parcels would arrive on their doormat, ready to be collected. we wanted to make the parcels look, to stand out, to make them look interesting. So we actually commissioned this particular package you can see on screen to have our company identity clearly visible. We wrapped it in a clear plastic sleeve that we could then stick the address label and postage on. These sound very simple things, I know, but honestly, they've made such a difference to reaching out to our customers. Of course, we had to comply with GDPR regulations. So we reached out to each of our recipients on email to ask them if it would be okay for them to give us their home address so that we could send these parcels through to them. And the example you see on screen is an example of beverages that we sent, which in themselves presented us with some practical challenges. You know, we wanted to send liquids that were in a ready to drink, an RTD format. And of course, we had to source the appropriate sized and durable container that would fit within our box. You know, our box was now our limitation factor. These were the dimensions that everything had to fit within. And so we carried out a couple of fairly simple tests within our facility and amongst our colleagues at Brenntag, where we literally carried out a drop test, you know, recognizing that this parcel could well fall from waist height, maybe 1 meter high, onto a hard tiled floor. So we replicated that in our own facilities in Brenntag, and you know, until the packaging and the way of sealing it, you know, passed our drop test, we didn't send anything to customers. So making sure that there was no leakage from these containers. We then carried out some transit trials. You know, again, not actually sending anything out to customers yet. We carried these out amongst our own colleagues' home addresses. And we had the good fortune that the contents were actually shelf stable for 8 weeks. So at this point, we felt we've got a pretty good proposal to send out to customers to restart our product development process. And if you'd now like to move to the next slide, please, Robin. So then we really wanted to focus on, you know, what are we going to gain from this opportunity to reach out and engage with our customers in this new way. And collaborating with our marketing team in-house at Brenntag, we produced a small booklet that would fit inside this box. And in that booklet, we highlighted, you know, each of the components that were in the tray in the box that the recipient would receive through their front door. Highlighting there was no allergens in any of these products. They were suitable for vegans. There was a full ingredient list, so everybody could see what was actually in the products that they were going to evaluate. And we also started to give them some ideas that the customers might want to use in their own continuation of these projects. Perhaps, you know, some nutritional claims, some other ideas for them to use in their creativity and innovation process. And most importantly, we linked this to an assessment form so that we made sure that we were actually getting some semi-quantitative feedback of how customers were responding to the visuals, the taste, the mouthfeel of these products, and that provided some really good research that we could then move forward with to progress these projects further. Robin, could you move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So also we included a powder. This is showing the sachet of the powder that we actually included in that box of ready to drink products, and all of the components really were highlighting several of the capabilities that we have at Brenntag Food and Nutrition, as you see listed down the left and the right hand side of this page. So we were really, you know, trying to convey to the customer within the constraints of the project we were working on that there were many ways in which we could help them further develop either this product or further ranges to follow on, whether they were looking for these natural flavors or natural colors, whether it was a sugar reduced or a no added sugar product. For the powder one, we have a good flow aid that works for them. And also looking at the different proteins, plant-based proteins that we can offer. Fortifying with vitamins has been a very hot topic since we all went into lockdown, thinking about our own immunity. Branch chain amino acids is something that we're expert within, and single origin cocoa, which can often be useful for customers who are wanting to position their chocolate-based drinks. So we really felt that we developed something that you know, we thought had some value. We thought it would get through to customers, you know, through all the challenges, you know, and make it to their front door so that they could then pick it up and evaluate it. And if we move to the next slide, please, Robin. So on this final slide here, I'd really just wanted to highlight the benefits that process brought. You know, we found that, you know, our existing NPD projects restarted and have continued. We've actually been very fortunate to start many new NPD projects with our customers. Since the first lockdown, we've got quite accustomed now to how to get these samples, through people's front doors to provide them with something that they can give us feedback on. And it's meant that we've actually been able to meet launch timelines with customers who are working to often very strict, very tight timelines. We've been able to support them in that process. And I guess most importantly, new business wins have continued to be achieved. So from our point of view, we think this is a fairly good example of agile thinking within COVID times. And I think that's my last slide, Robin, if you just move to the final one. I think the next one, yes, it is. So sense the differences as our company message. So I'd like to conclude my presentation now and hand over to Sarah, who I think is going to give you another example of bringing agility to sensory and consumer research.
So thank you for that, Steve. That was really interesting to hear an agile perspective, like dealing with customers rather than consumers. So thank you for that. So to introduce myself, I'm Sarah. I'm the Senior Sensory Scientist at Mars Wrigley. I'm sure most people have heard of Mars Wrigley or have tried some of our products. So at Mars Wrigley, we are responsible for manufacturing confectionery products and snacks and treats, which cover chocolate, fruity confections, snack bars, and chewing gum as well. Can I move my slides? Yeah. So as part of the sensory team, we really pride ourselves on being responsible for translating the consumer dreams into desired experiences, so that we can really work with our product development team and our pack development team and the rest of our project partners in really understanding what it is that consumers want from a particular product, and then making sure that we have got attributes and aspects that deliver that for the consumers. And I think really even like before the pandemic started, we were on a journey to become more agile with our testing, and completely building on what Tracy and Ollie have already said. For us, it isn't necessarily about being faster, although that does sometimes play a role, but it is really about being flexible and having iterative, either like iterative prototyping or iterative testing, having a general plan, but building, refining each step as we get data from the step before, and really working smarter and utilizing the technology. There are so many new technologies out there now, and so bringing those into what we like to call our sensory toolbox, and having those complement the more traditional sensory and consumer research that we would do. So as I mentioned, for us to be more agile, we really just want to try and access some more nimble approaches to testing that allow us to create ideas that are constantly fed by insights, and that we can adjust and adapt for the next round of testing, but that everything is really based on data and consumer data and the findings that we're seeing. And we really want to have a more holistic view of the whole data ecosystem. And for us, really, that means democratizing results, as I think that is one of the most agile things that you can do, is when you run a piece of research, whoever is running it, whether it's human insights, your customer marketing insights, or sensory, that all of that research is stored in a central place, and that's searchable, so that you can, if you're wanting to run a piece of research or you've got a question, you can go back and you can search for what do you already know about that, what study was previously carried out, do you have any knowledge, and then build from there. And you might decide, actually, we have enough knowledge to make this decision, and the most agile thing would be to not test, as we know the answer. And then we also spend a lot of time at Mars identifying methodologies and suppliers that can help us gather data and access the consumers where they are. And there are lots of different tools out there to do this. No one supplier can do everything, The ones that we're using quite a bit in the sensory team at the moment are the ones at the bottom there: Vox Pop Me, Taluna, Suzy, and Motivebase. I don't know if people have heard of those, but Vox Pop Me is a consumer, like a video feedback tool. That's been really valuable for us to see consumers give feedback on questions or concepts and see their reactions. Taluna and Suzy are your more typical sort of like quantitative online platforms covering different markets. So Taluna Start has got quite a good global reach, whereas Suzy is at the moment a bit more US based. And then Motive Based is a ethnographic tool, an online anthropologist ethnographic tool, which searches like the conversations that consumers are having online about a particular aspect or a particular theme, and they've all been really helpful for us. But one of the things that we're seeing as being really quite agile is identifying what the riskiest assumption is and test that, particularly in new innovation. What is the riskiest assumption that we have? And let's test that first. And then systematically de-risk as we increase, and then gradually increase the investment as we decrease our risks. And what that means to us in terms of Agile is that we don't have to just have a really big, traditional, heavy piece of consumer research. We can run smaller pieces of research to give us the confidence to move on to the next step. And as we progress through, run larger pieces of research, you have more validation type of research, but really start off quite small and gather data as we go along. So hopefully that makes sense. So I just want to share with you now a couple of case studies of projects that I've worked on. One that probably has got more of a fast, like this is how fast we can do something. And then another one that shows where we've taken an approach of doing lots of different testing. And unfortunately, these products are still in the development stage. They haven't been released yet, so I can't share any names, but I just wanted to share with you the approach that we've taken. So the first one I want to share is about the shape of a product, which might sound really not particularly interesting, but we know that appearance does play a great role in product acceptance. And so we had some hypotheses, or we had some initial data from a concept screening test and a qualitative prototype sessions, that this unique shape that we had developed for our new product provided greater desirability over current shapes that were on the market, and it was worth the trade-off in efficiency and a launch delay. We needed to have new molds made, and that would cause a delay. But we had some insights that it would be worth it in the long run. But we were getting quite a lot of questions from the project team and stakeholders, and there was a lot of swirl. And one of the things that we like to say in Team Sensory is that we're really there to like slay the swirl. So what can we do to answer that question and move forward, really? So we had some designs of the different product shapes, including the unique one that we could launch, and we did an online test with that. At the very last minute, or what I say the last minute, the day before we were due to launch, a fourth design was added. So that really demonstrates like being flexible. You know, we had another product pop up that we thought would be useful to test. If that was a real product test, that wouldn't have been possible. You know, we wouldn't have been able to produce that in the time. And quite often, you know, when you're doing in-product testing, there's only so much you can show people in a session that you would have agreed. So it would have been a bit more difficult to do that. So we were able to, you know, program our survey quite quickly. We launched it to 600 French consumers. It completed well within 24 hours, and it only cost £1,500, which is quite small for consumer research, in my opinion. And so we were quickly able to get our results back, and within 72 hours of like launching, completing the survey, we were able to report that to our senior stakeholders and make a decision to move that project forward. The results showed that the unique shape did not outperform our alternative shapes, but we were able to make that business decision based on our consumer desirability data. So to ensure that we were making a decision that didn't, to ensure that desirability was not sacrificed. So that's my first one. And then my second case study is about launching a new product. And this is really the balance between lab testing and real life testing. So where can we do a bit more lab testing and see what consumers would say they would do, and where do we really need to understand their behavior and see what they do, or really understand what is it that they do. So when designing and making this new product, we first of all did an online concept screening test, quite normal, quite traditional, to narrow down which products were the most desirable to the consumers. So we got our product. We then created some prototypes of that product, and we ran some iterative prototyping sessions with consumers, showing them the product, getting some feedback on that, how the product tasted, how it looked, how would they use it. We then did some desk research as well to get harvest our current knowledge and see what capabilities that we had. So could we, based on what the consumer said to how they like it optimized, were we able to do that? Did we have the capabilities? Did we have to buy those capabilities in? What did all of that look like? Carried on doing some optimization. We then came across that we had quite several different routes for appearance that we would be able to take. So we ran an online test to show people the different appearances and get their feedback from that. That actually gave us some quite interesting results that we wanted to dig in further. So that actually span off a couple of other projects where we used some of like Vox Pop Me particularly, and some more testing to really it was a route we decided that we wouldn't take for this product, but we wanted to understand more about it. Could it be an option for the future, for future development? We then got some further consumer feedback on our products and built on that. We did some pack design testing, which also gave us some really good feedback on, did the pack design position the product in the way that we wanted to do? And again, we ran some online testing for that to get some initial feedback. And once we had that, we then took that into some iterative groups where the groups ran over a week. As Ollie mentioned, it was that type of research where everybody was involved, like watching the groups. The pack designers were there, the design agencies. At the end of each day, there was a debrief, and then the pack designers went away and optimized the pack designs ready for the next day, and then showed those and continually built on that. So that research only took a week to complete to get to the final design, which was quite quick, quite agile. Then we ran some more like real life testing. We ran an advert on Facebook. I know that's quite common and quite a lot of companies do that now, but although we didn't have a real product, we ran some adverts on Facebook for it to see, okay, with our pack design, our product, with our pack design really, are consumers interested in this, in a real life situation? Are they clicking on the advert? Are they wanting to find out more about it? And then are they actually going to, convert? Like, do they want to then go on and buy it? So those, I'm not a fay with all of the algorithms and the equations, but, the conversion and click rates and stuff. And that was also really, really helpful. Not only did it help us understand if our pack design was working or not, but also helped us understand about price. Was the price appealing? obviously this product didn't exist. So when they get to that point, they put it in their cart, a page then comes up and just says, oh, I'm sorry, this product isn't available at the moment, but can we ask you a few questions about it? And we were able to get some consumer feedback. So some real life, like consumers were interested in it, and then get some feedback from them. And this all helped us, all of these tests helped us build up to a bigger validation test. So the more traditional, we did a home use test, sent the products home with people for a couple of weeks. It was your typical traditional test, but what we did also do is insert some video feedback for this one. And as Tracy mentioned, that really helped us convey to our stakeholders, like the excitement around the product, how people were using it. And what was also really beneficial is we asked people to record them opening the product, and everybody did the same thing with the pack. They really almost ripped it apart, they really wanted to get to the product and be able to see the product. Nobody said that the pack was an issue. Nobody mentioned that they were ripping the pack apart to get a really good look at the product, but we could see that that was something that people were doing, and that allowed us to adapt the packaging before moving on to the next stage. So really valuable. We're now just about to go into a test and learn, what we'd call a bigger test and learn, where we'll launch the product in some smaller markets, 1 or 2 markets, and do some post-launch research to understand how it's performing from people who are purchasing it, so to see if we need to optimize anything before we do a bigger rollout. And what I would also say, I think where we've been but another place where we've been able to demonstrate agility is we're currently building up to this test and learn, and we did our validation back at the beginning of the year. And between now and then, there's been a lot of conversations about price, but we got some really good price information from our validation study, but there's still been a bit of conversation about that. But every test that we would be able to do based on price would be more of a lab one, so what people say. And we know we've got really good data from our validation study. We know we've got good data from our advert, and we're not going to get anything better than that until we do the test and learn. So the most agile thing that we keep saying to people is, let's just go with what we know and then revise afterwards. And throughout the whole of this project, we've really been working with our other project partners on assessing the desirability versus the feasibility and the viability, so that nothing is happening standalone, that the whole project is moving forward as one, and we don't get to the end after doing lots of testing and then the business says, oh, we can't afford to launch that, or the price is going to be too high, or we can't actually make that. And I think that's another demonstration of being more agile, and as Tracy mentioned on one of her very first slides, being collaborative. So just as a final takeaway from me, what I really found in our business is the key takeaways to being agile is systematically de-risk the assumptions, start small, and then build your size of your test as your confidence increases. Utilize all of the available resources. New technologies are coming more and more available every day, and it isn't a case of replacing the traditional methodologies that we have, but complementing them. And I cannot stress enough that being able to democratize all of your data and your insights into one place where everybody can search, how valuable that is, and really stops repeat testing or lots of questions coming up. So that's it from me. So thank you very much for your time. But now we are going to go into our breakout groups. So what we really hope from these sessions is that it'd be a good chance for you to all discuss what's going on within your organizations, where you feel your organizations are going, or any challenges that you're seeing. These are the questions that we thought would be good starting points to talk about. So we've got a set of questions for the even numbered breakout groups and a set of questions for the odd numbered breakout groups. But what we'd really like people to do is just discuss, you know, has what we've presented about being agile, is that what you understand agile to be? How are your business applying it? And what practical steps are you taking to bring agility into your practices? If you're already aligned pre-COVID, how has this been changed and adapted by the restrictions of the pandemic? And where aren't we agile? What opportunities are there for us to become more agile, and how would you address them? Okay,